I wanted to talk about can they do a 2022 release, right? And so I'm gonna have a hard time explaining this. I'll do my best. So I was able to get from from some other site like a bunch of start dates from every season in World of Warcraft, and from that I used some. I am very smart, so I used the formula to like kind of get a count between these start and end dates. How many days? How many weeks? How many months? And from this, I wanted to kind of get an idea of the trends of how long, how long should a season be, and how long is season 3 and season 4 of Shadowlands going to be, and will that fit with a possible 2022 release? And so, it is kind of fun to look at how all these work. So like we look at. Let's go with the more modern WoW, starting with Warlords. So Warlords, that had a length that for season 1 was 6 months, season 2 4 months, season 3 8 months. Legion had a little bit different. This is when Legion is when they started doing the 0.5 patches, 0.5 1 2.5 1 3 whatever. But they did a season for each 0.5 for each increment, which was very interesting. So we had very short seasons, which maybe people liked, maybe they didn't like, whatever. But you had these shorter seasons, 2 months, 3 months, 2 months, 2 months, 2 months, and so on. Once they hit BFA though, that's when you started to see like, okay, we're just gonna have one season because we're able to just have like a, instead of what we did before in Legion, this time we're gonna have like a full season throughout the entire patch. So like if there's like a 9.1 or 8.1, it's going to include 8.1.5. And so that's why in BFA, that's when they pretty much cut the seasons in half from 7 all the way down to 4 for each of the major patches. And that kind of made sense, but we also saw like much longer seasons, 4-month season, 5 months, or actually 22 weeks, 22 weeks, and then the 38 is kind of an aberration because that's the end of the expansion. In Shadowlands though, we see we see some different stuff, and I'll just show these right here so you can kind of see these are relatively accurate dates. They go with the start date, but then they're also following the PvP season, so it's kind of like a give or take a week or so. But we're seeing that season 1 29 weeks, about 6 months. Season 2 was 33 weeks, about 7 months, maybe 8 months I think it's 8 months if you round it up. And then season 3, we're not quite sure. Season 3 started early March 1st. It has been 3 months into this season, although it might feel like 6 years to some of you guys. But we're at that point. In earlier interview with Warcraft Radio maybe, or Starting Zone. It was an interview with, I believe, Morgan Day, before he became assistant game director, and he said that the average season length is like 6 to 8 months. That's kind of like what their sweet spot is. Shadowlands has gone closer to the 8-month range, but we can see that their first 2 seasons were about 6 or 7 months each. And so I thought to myself, okay, let's go with that. And that's why there's a lot of folks that also share the opinion that, okay, if Shadowlands season 3 is going to be a minimum of 6 months, so let's go with that. Let's pretend that Shadowlands season 3 is going to end either late August or early September. Something like that. And I'm trying to see some shit. Why isn't it going? Okay, there we go. So I guesstimated it at August 30th, and that'll give us a 26-week season. The trend isn't so great. The trending is like really all over the place. But seeing a minimum 26-week season, that can kind of work. That's still going to be about 2 months from now. 8-9 resets. Still a lot of time for people to clear their mythic or heroic milestones, get their AOTC, get their cutting edge. That seems reasonable. Now, from that, Season 4 would have an estimated start date of September 6th. And I decided that the season would end on the first day of the Dragonflight launch, which I'm going to guesstimate is December 13th. And here's why. Here's why I said December 13th. I said December 13th. I don't know if you can see this calendar very well. December 13th fits. It makes sense. December 6th, December, November 29th. These feel a little bit early. I'm going with the latest possible date, where they launch on the 12th / the 13th worldwide, and then as soon as the dust settles throughout that week, hella people go on break. Fuck you guys. Time for some vacation. Now, let's take into context, before we get to that. With a season length like this, we're looking at a 14-week season, which fits with Blizzard's statement saying that Season 4 of Shadowlands is going to be a shorter season. This is definitely a shorter season. We're looking at almost half as long as Season 3. Definitely much shorter than the season before that. But let's also take into context like what this season is. It's a remix of raids that we've already done. I'm not counting on there being a lot of people coming back for Season 4. For a lot of folks, the lull began in March. Once they completed the content that they felt like doing, they were done. And they're like, oh, Season 4? Fuck that. What Season 4 was, in my observation, is something to cater to folks that are still around. And they're going to be hanging out and they want to do some cool stuff. And so they're like, hey, let's give them something to do. There's a lot of folks, and I totally understand this 100%. There are a lot of folks who are saying that Dragonflight is being squeezed in for a 2022 release. I don't contest that, but I'm offering a different theory here. I think they did plan for a 2022 release this entire time. They were planning for this from almost the beginning. From a very early point. But at some point, they were like, hey, you know what? There's some experiments that we want to run. Maybe we can do some cool shit with like raids and dungeons and stuff. Can we cram a Season 4 into this? Can we take 14 weeks out of Season 3? 12 to 14 weeks out of Season 3 and do stuff with it? Can we do that, team? Because remember, Season 4 entails more dungeons, which are, and when dungeons are turned into Mythic Pluses, that's kind of like an investment that will last a little bit longer, right? Because of time walking and things like that. And then the remixed raids, which do involve tuning, which do involve like rebalancing and stuff, and doing a snazzy ability or something like that, and it does need a crew to kind of stay on top of it. But it's not. I would posit that it's not like that big of a deal. It doesn't require that much work. So I'm willing to guess that the WoW team was like, "Hey, let's create a Season 4. Let's cram it in there. Let's mess with stuff. Let's see how that works." Now, also keep in mind that 12/13 is, it's the middle of December. That's going to mean that the middle of November is going to be when the pre-patch drops. Because we've seen historically that the pre-patches last for roughly a month, for about 4 resets worth. Something like that. Now, as far as, we don't know this for sure, but so far, we haven't seen any evidence that the Evoker is going to be available to play. But it probably will be. It might be, it will be, I don't know. I mean, Demon Hunters were, right? Yeah, I think Demon Hunters were playable during the pre-patch if you pre-ordered. And if not, then whatever. I'm pretty sure that's right. So it gives that chance for evokers to like to mess around with stuff. And we're still working on a fairly we'll still have a full rotation of all the faded versions of the raids. That's something to consider too. With the faded raids, we're going to see like a rotation of each of the 3 Shadowlands raids: Castle Nathria, Sanctum, Sepulchre. 14 weeks gives us 3.5 rotations, so we get to see all these 3 raids a couple times. It kind of puts into question like how quickly will people be able to gear up from those raids, because that's what people are going to do it for. They're going to be preparing their characters for Dragonflight stuff. They're going to they're going to try to farm up bosses so they can get those tokens, so they can upgrade the gear and things like that. And I think this fits, because it'll give evokers for a full rotation to try out each of the faded raids, give them a test drive, plus all the pre-patch changes, plus like the talents and everything's gonna feel all jacked up. So I think that fits too. And then there's the length of the test cycle. And I had to double check this. The Shadowlands test cycle, it started in April, like early-ish April. And it took about 7 or 8 months. After 7 or 8 months, and I say 7 or 8 months because Shadowlands was supposed to launch in October. It ended up being pushed back a month to November. So it was like closer to like 8 months or so. Season 3, the lull began March 1st. And if we count 7 to 8 months, we're still on track for a release of Shadowlands. Now there are things that we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen the alpha start yet, and those are obvious milestones to consider when it comes to when the expansion may possibly come out. But I'm also considering just the raw amount of time. Like if they could. Alpha and beta, they're kind of arbitrary things. They can decide, hey, you know what, we're just going to go straight into beta because we just feel like calling it beta now. Or we can say the beta's only going to last for 1 month and the alpha's going to last. They can kind of sort of make that up if they want to. The thing is, though, the time frame, the range of time that the team has available to them, it still fits. It's still enough time. And if we also consider fewer systems to work on, no Torghast, no borrowed power shits to worry about, and they're just working on other stuff, they kind of have that flexibility. They have that time. They have the leeway to commit to this sort of timeline. And so season 1 of Dragonflight would begin early January. Now, that's going to feel a little bit different because we're used to having 2 weeks of game time to just fuck around and do stuff before we start getting into season content. With a release date like this, we're looking at about 3 weeks, I think. Well, let me double check. So we're looking at December 12/13. So that gives 1, 2, 3 weeks. I definitely see the team not being here for almost this entire 2-week period. But then for the season to start on the 3rd, after everyone's back home. Maybe even a bit longer, but I think that would be pushing it. I think people are very accustomed to having like a 2-week starting period for the expansion. Pushing that out to 3 weeks, I think that might be pushing it mentally, because some people, they're going to feel restless. Come on, dude. We're already mythiced out. I got 100% mythic gear. I got max dragon writing, whatever it is. Give me the content. Give me the content. So that wouldn't surprise me either. But I think this is the most ideal timeline if we're going for a 2022 release. And it fits. And if it doesn't, fight me on it, so I can come out of this stronger. They've said Evoker will be available pre-patch for people who pre-order. Okay, cool. Thank you for that. NB says that I'm still not buying the patch was cut theory. With the exception of a mini raid, we got basically the same amount of content from BFA, and no one claimed a patch was cut from BFA. Stuff happens, right? Stuff happens. I'm not gonna hold them to a score or whatnot. Like I said earlier, I firmly believe that the WoW team had decided early on what was going to be cut, and so they planned around it, and so they crafted this experience around it. And as janky as it might have felt for some folks, it's not nearly as bad as how it went with Warlords. I think Warlords was handled very poorly by comparison. And while Shadowlands was a mixed bag, they did a lot better at cutting the content and still making something that was reasonably coherent. Not everyone's going to agree with me on that, but I'm thinking about the comparison just as much as I'm thinking about the actual, how it was actually received. Going back to the dates here, like, what do you guys think? And I'm doing this on, I'm putting this out on YouTube as well. Like, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that this is a reasonable timeline? Do you think it doesn't work? Do you think that it's still not enough time? Do you think, nah, screw that, Blizzard should take as much time as they need and delay things? Because my opinion, I think they could push this back. They could and they should push this back. No need to rush if they don't have to. But this is also based on my limited knowledge and perspective of what is coming. If what is coming doesn't need that much more time, okay. How much more do you need to, how much more polish would another month or two give, depending on, what system we're talking about? Do they need an extra month for like talents and things like that? I'm not sure. But I remember that one of the delays, at least what they said, one of the delays of Shadowlands was because the Maw experience wasn't what they wanted it to be, which is kind of a big deal because a lot of folks did not like the Maw. And this is after the delay. This is after they fixed things. And so my hopes are that with what's coming in Dragonflight, it's gonna be quite the turnaround because one, there is no Maw. This is an expansion that's very much based on having much more freer movement thanks to dragon riding. It's not going to be freeform movement, mind you, but it's not going to have that sort. It's not going to have that sort of feel from the onset, at least. And that's all I got for right now. So for the VOD people, that's it. Like the video, subscribe for more content, and let me know what you think about this. And until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.